So Dheeraj, you want to kick us off and introduce yourselves and your firm and walk through the presentation? If you can go about 20 minutes and have 5 or 10 minutes, and at the end we have something called open mic. That's 2 minutes. You can get the mic, ask a question, share a new demo, or tell us anything that's on your mind.
Thank you so much, Paul, for the fantastic introduction and for having Aditya and me speak and share some of our experiences in building chatbots. Of course, we spent a majority of our time, doing the traditional chatbots, so as to speak, and very excited to hear different perspectives. Aditya, I would ask you to just present your screen and, with a quick intro, let's get right into the presentation.
And before you start, I want to compliment and thank Aditya, who's calling in from India. I think it's 4:30 a.m. in India right now, or some ridiculously early time like that. So
4:30 it is, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you should be able to.
We aren't saying anything yet. I think you emailed me the screen or the presentation. Should I pull it up as backup?
Sure. Just 1 sec.
While we're waiting, is anyone a big user of you.com? I've had 2 people tell me about it. Val's using it.
Yeah,
Val,
great.
Well, Val, why do you like it versus the others?
The way it searches, it's just, I don't know, it's just simple and easy. And I heard a podcast with one of the founders, and I kind of connected with him. So, what he was saying, I liked, so I use it a lot.
Great. And what use cases do you use it for? Is it for search, like research, or summarization?
No, just search primarily, replacing Google.
Great.
I use it too for the API.
Oh, great. Thank you. We can see your screen. Go ahead, start.
Perfect.
All right, let's get started. Thank you, Aditya. So first of all, thank you so much, Paul, again, for having us over. We're going to talk about creating new age virtual assistants. Of course, over the last 1 year, we've seen tremendous buzz around LLMs and, Alden with RAG models and a bunch of other people doing really amazing, innovative stuff. We're going to talk about different options that brands, SMEs, small businesses have in being able to get onto the chatbots and virtual agents bandwagon. But first, quick introduction about the company, about Aditya and me. Paul's already introduced us a little bit. Aditya, if you could move to the next slide. So a little bit about Digit88. We're a product engineering and professional services organization based out of India. We're about 10 years old and have been working with entrepreneurs in the Boston and the Bay Area, helping them build their enterprise SaaS products over the last 10 years. Over the last 6 years, we've been working with one of the foremost conversational AI and contact center messaging company in helping them build both their platform, as well as work with the teams and deliver solutions for brands in North America and the APAC region. We've worked across domains. So we've built solutions for retail, airlines, banking, and each one of them comes along with its own set of challenges, demands from large enterprises, and limitations that small enterprises and small businesses apply. I think LLM is a great leveler. It really is going to allow a lot more companies which did not have the large enterprise budgets to be able to build fantastic solutions around leveraging AI for better automation and cost savings as well.
Excuse me, one quick clarification. In your mind, just at a basic level, is conversational AI equal chatbots from a business standpoint, or are those really different in your mind?
Well, the terms have been used interchangeably a lot, right? And conversational AI is so chatbots were considered a little bit more robotic, more pattern-based, and conversational AI is more NLU, NLP, a little bit more conversational, more human-like. And would love to hear more viewpoints, but that's typically how we and a lot of the brands that we work with typically tend to see that. So a lot more natural and a lot more conversational.
Thank you.
But so far a lot of that has been achieved by by kind of hard coding, so as to speak, personas, building workflows and creating those personas, leveraging conversation design, which of course is being appended by LLMs and the intelligence and the massive power of contextual relevance that they bring in. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Aditya to walk us through the rest of the presentation, where he's going to be talking about use cases, different models, what does typically building a traditional chatbot entail versus what Gen AI is able to bring in into the mix.
Hey, thank you so much, Dheeraj. Right. So what I want to do, especially in the next 15 minutes, right, is not bore you with so much of traditional information which you already know. So just a quick background. So I have about 6 years of experience coming corely from conversation design perspective, then got into architecting solutions, worked with both Microsoft as well as Google platforms in the past, and I've also built out products earlier as well, right? So I'll be coming from that perspective in terms of picking the right use cases, what works best in what scenarios, right? When do you pick traditional, but conversation AI building platforms versus NLU-driven approach, right? So when is the right time to pick what? So I will be covering from that angle, mostly from that angle, right? Because if you think about it, the design, at the end of the day, customer experience, be it employee experience, boils down to your design, how extrinsic and intrinsic designs are made. So with this, I'll just take you through a quick overview what has happened. Now I'm pretty sure everyone knows about chatbots being around for more than a decade, right? With Elisa being around from 1960s. So it started off with the menu-based and rule-based bots. Things changed in the year around the year of 2010s, where Siri, Alexa, and Assistant came in. People's perception about what virtual assistants and chatbots can do, other than fiction movies, sci-fis, have completely changed, right? And that's when companies started rolling out a consumer-friendly platforms where you, as a consumer or a brand or a company, can go build out chatbots. The reason I'm doing air quotes is we personally, as a company, don't like to use the term anymore. We feel it's now at a stage where it's evolved into virtual assistants, right? So this was the progression that we have seen, right? You have your basic menu and rule-based bots, completely keyword pattern-based bots. And when I started working on chatbots way back, it was in between the whole keyword-based and conversational AI chatbots, where you had a very basic form of NLU intents. Most of the platforms gave you capability of building just 50 intents at most, right? You need to have maximum out of 20 utterances, few entities. So that was the kind of box that we were put in to build out chatbots. So that's when the conversational AI aspect evolved. And consumers and brands could start building bots. And fast forward to 2024, now you have so many, again, this is just few brands that we have listed here, but there are way too many amazing brands out there and platforms out there like VoiceFlow, and there's an open source like Rasa as well that we would have also loved to mention further. So those platforms now not only give you your traditional NLU, their advanced NLU, give you a low-code interface, so anyone don't have to worry about building chatbots the old school. They can just use drag and drop and logic, build bots according to their business requirement. More integrations no need of, you don't have to rely on an engineer or a developer to sit and build out systems where you have to connect your CRM manually. Everything is pre-built, everything is low code, and you can create great omni-channel experiences, right? That's where we are fast forwarding to 2024. Now, with LLM coming into the whole mix, does that mean these platforms are still relevant? And that's a big question that lingers around, right? But the answer is a big yes. It is going to be around, and it is the way that we see the market progressing is how these conversational AI platforms bring in LLMs and allow customers or brands to start creating and fine-tuning their own models inside these platforms and use in conjunction with their existing NLU to create these virtual assistants. Now, what does these platforms offer you, right? So these are proven platforms. They give you proven use cases and templates. Most of the platforms have pre-built use cases, pre-built templates that you can quickly start off with, reducing your build time. And you can create specific use cases that is meant for your customer and employee journey. I'm pretty sure most of your journeys or SOPs and how your customer interacts with you or how your employee does work day to day, it follows a specific SOP, right? And now with LLM, yes, that it takes a lot of fine tuning to achieve that, but with conversational AI platforms, it's easy to kind of predict, know, and build out these different chain of events that might happen and create a good pathway, right? And obviously control over data and compliance. And you can cover a lot of complex user context. Most of the platforms support all of this right now, and contact center support, AI, live agent support, AI assistance. So these are some things that most of these platforms support right now. But what are the downside, right? It is increased development and go live time. So for brands who are starting to build from scratch, they would have increased development time and go live time. And for specific businesses like banks, FSI, that want to create domain specific chatbots, virtual assistants, they would take a lot of time to create these models, build out these flows from scratch, because most of the platforms out there are agnostic. So this increases your go live time, and high OpEx and industry specific models are extremely limited. Now, what we've also seen typically, especially with HDTA and also from most of the projects that I've been involved in, typical enterprise projects, have a build time of about 1 to 3 months using these platforms. Again, these are like small to medium level scenarios, and post that optimization is never done, right? So you keep optimizing your virtual assistant, make sure it gives you the best and the optimal performance for your customers. Now, again, so this is what the traditional landscape or the conversational AI platforms offer. Now, at the end of 2022, everything changed, right? Everyone woke up to, I think this was pre-X era. This was like Twitter, when everyone screaming out ChatGPT coming out, and us, especially me, my team, as conversation designers, as people in the conversational AI, field, it was a mixed emotion, right? So we were extremely, excited to work with platforms and work with things to make sure that, see how NLU has evolved over to LLMs. And we've seen how ChatGPT has made things so easy, but also created some sort of, would this end up replacing what we've been doing all these years, right? So that was something that lingered around, but with time, it's been 2 years since then. We've come to a very good realization that, you live in conjunction with the two, right? So you cannot replace it completely as of now, especially as conversational AI platforms. All the context that I'm speaking today, especially in today's call, is completely with respect to the text, the aspect of LLMs with respect to, dialogue generation, text summarizations, core with respect to what a virtual agent will use, right? So I'm sticking to that kind of a world, and I'm not going beyond that realm at the moment, right? Because since we are in that topic. And I can see that these are, and we've just put out the most used platforms right now. And these are some of the things you can see that this is not stopping. This is not like where the hype is going to go down. The hype cycle, especially, is going to be on the curve and up as we go. And there are more platforms to see, and especially with Llama 3 releasing, pretty much like couple of days back, and it's been a great turn of events to see how LLMs are performing really well. Now, does that completely replace, now with LLMs coming in and being trained on all this large corpus of data, understanding a lot of generic tasks, can I replace my customer agents, virtual assistants, or use LLM to just be the forefront of my customers or even employees for that matter, right? Now that's a big question. Can it be completely done? It's a hybrid approach, right? Now with just LLM driven platforms, yes, there are a lot of positives. It can keep learning, it can keep optimizing on your data, and you can create domain specific models that understands your jargon, understands understands your data really well, and able to contextually aware and answer back to your users, right? Now, all of this given, there are also a lot of downsides as well. So there are data compliance issues, and there's so many companies coming up and also working relentlessly to kind of solve that or create a barrier around that, right? But again, enterprise level usage for even small to mid-tier companies are still, there's an entry barrier, right? So it can become very expensive. You would have to use open source to kind of get in there, try it out, and inability to handle integrate and tailored user parts. And again, with a lot of fine tuning, it can be done. We can kind of tailor that, but the kind of ease that that this is your customer journey, like it could be as simple as applying or updating a credit card, in a banking scenario, or it could be as in even an appointment booking, right? So those are integrated scenarios or niche scenarios that you have tailored for your particular business. Now, having that out of the box in a proper conversational AI platform, creating the path would be a much easier approach rather than fine-tuning every step of the way, right? Now, there are a lot of low-code platforms, and those platforms out there, especially ones like Custom GPT, they help us kind of offer significant reduction in development and go live time. And this is for lower usage scenarios, like where you want to kind of automate most of your publicly available data, structured data, websites, where quickly ingest that and have a chatbot rolled out within a couple of minutes, right? So those kind of usage scenarios is where we see quickly LLM coming in and fixing that void that has been there in the conversational AI platform. Now, again, this is a great example, especially from a design perspective, right? Now, yes, you can build integrate scenarios, but it requires a lot of trial and error and fine tuning, right, to get that right level of flow. So now this is a great example that I like to use, where just having a normal conversation can be back and forth. And once you create that Rails guardrails, this is the end of the conversation. That's great, but then there is no definitive, assistance to the end user, right? So this can become a major issue, especially when you're designing experiences for your customers. Okay, so now that being said, just wanted to hop over to some of the top use cases that we've been seeing, especially with a lot of customers across different domains. And what are some of those maximum use cases that is being solved? Again, this is not very Gen AI or conversational AI platform specific. There are two purposes to this, right? The first one is the idea of automation versus augmentation. Now you have every enterprise or every company would have multiple use cases or scenarios that they would like to, have the chatbot or AI pick it up. Now, the first step that we see is when you want to go into this transformational process is to kind of segregate your use case into, can it be automated completely, right? Can my whole SOP that I'm having currently for my employees or for my customers, can it be automated completely without a human intervention? Now, without a human intervention, will that provide a good experience for my customer? Will I fill that void? Now, that's your question number one. And your question number two is, if not, if the answer to the first one is no, now, what are my use cases where I can augment the whole use case, right? Where I can have the virtual agent coming in, helping you out. And when scenarios where it needs additional assistance, transfer to a live agent, live human being who can go that one step further and assist you. So now that's the first thing that we say to any customer that we work with is look at your use cases and we'll help you find out whether it's a scope of automation or whether it's a scope of augmentation. And the reason we're seeing it in this binary perspective, it also helps you to narrow down your use case, especially in the technology of choice. So where you want to particularly use an LLM, where you want to particularly use your traditional NLU-driven flows, or a hybrid or a mix of both. So they are just some of the top use cases that we have worked with, and kind of spans over both your verticals as well as your horizontals as well, your IT, HR, sales. Now, going through all of this, I think you can see there's a mix of process, a lot of process and specific customer journeys, right? And these could be specific for different, in a financial institution, not every bank might have the same process of, let's say, an account level information. They might require different details to kind of authenticate, and it might change with geography as well. Company, and the next set of things is your product FAQs, your product documentations and product recommendations, right? Now, this again obviously varies from different organizations. Now, what we have kind of understood is all these platforms that's offering you to create these contextual flows and dialogues, and it'll be great to continue using them for processes and specific customer journeys, right? And wherever you have product information recommendations that you want to guide the users towards product recommendations, right? Hey, so do you like this? So it could be even like a shopping recommendation or an insurance plan recommendation, right? Choosing the right plan. So that would be a great use case for LLM. I know folks would have seen the new Google Next, the recent Google Next thing, would have seen how one of the AI agent example, right? So that's where it's going towards. So product recommendation can become very complex when you want to use conversational AI platform, because there are too many branches that you can create to guide a user to buy a particular product or upsell or cross-sell a particular product. Whereas in this scenarios, LLM might help you kind of solve that problem faster. This is the kind of, we've tried to make it simple, black and white.
Peter, can I jump in here? So one quick question. So on the traditional virtual agents, is it fair to say 99 or 100% of these applications are, I call it unassisted AI, or no human in the loop?
No, so these are 40% augmented and 60% automation, right? So not all the use cases here are completely without human. So for 60% of them are only fully automated. 40% of most of the use cases might require a human intervention. Again, this require.
So Aditya, Paul, I'd like to add on. I was having a conversation with a sales director at one of these conversational AI platform companies, and many of them have the goal of optimizing contact center operations. That's how LivePerson started, for example, right? Their primary use case was to optimize, bring scale, reduce costs, and of course bring efficiencies in operations. So a lot of these platforms work in conjunction with either voice or messaging based contact centers, and therefore a lot of the use cases that I have been seeing over the last 5 or 6 years are really a blend of IVR messaging, and that's omni-channel messaging. And now, of course, voice AI as well. And bring to that the power of LLMs, more enriched answers, more contextually aware, more intelligent, more natural.
And is it just and is it also fair to say that the traditional fork in the road for a customer might be, hey, I want this functionality, but I'm tired of all these point solutions. I'm going to wait for my contact vendor to have it, but they take forever to get it, and therefore I may often supplement it with a point solution, and we're going to have the same trade-off for customers. I mean, this is confusing. This is confusing here, and then you add large language model on top of it. This seems really confusing for customers, but maybe I'm misunderstanding this.
So, Paul, it's really very use case driven right now, is what Aditya was trying to say.
Yeah.
If you look at one of the biggest, one of the largest number of queries will be typically for product information, FAQs. And that's a clear-cut case where we see an immediate, a no-code platform comes in and is able to provide, intelligent handling of FAQs. Much more enriched, much more powerful than what the traditional models have been doing. And that takes away a bulk of the basic queries that any contact center would get.
Oh, that's interesting. So it sounds like there's some use cases that was a good one. Product frequently asked questions that feel like a no-brainer in the Gen AI world. Some with all the edge case you have, precision, tight documentation, stay traditional, and then another set in the middle. Is that the right?
And Paul, if you look at most of the enterprise brands, they are trying to do a lot more. I mean, of course, there are some large brands that are still hesitant in leveraging the full power of AI. They are still scared that they may not have control over what happens with the end customer, and of course, litigation and other things. I think there was a recent incident was it with Air Canada? I forget. In Canada.
Yes, Air Canada had one, yeah.
Air Canada, right? And I think that's one of the things that most large brands are still very skeptical or cautious about, I would say. And it's not very easy for them to relinquish control to machines immediately.
Yeah.
Because that fear of that, it'll go out of flow, or it might end up doing something which we had not designed it to do. It might hallucinate. That is a fundamental concern for most brand owners, brand strategists, just to make sure that they're able to maintain the consistency of their brand experience for their consumers.
Okay.
So they are.
I want to get one or two more questions from the audience and then go back to the presentation. Anyone else have questions they want to jump in right now, or wait till the end? All right, Aditya, keep rolling.
Hey, sure. Okay, so actually summarizing what we just discussed, like especially going back to your question, right? Choosing what's right for you, right? So we've just tried to simplify it again. It's an oversimplified version of what what we are trying to say. Now, on the left, you see a couple of top use cases, right? And a basic description and the tool or the platform. Now, for a simple, like I mentioned earlier, for a simple FAQ chatbot, which is trained on all of my website, media content, and documents, it's publicly available, or even internally, if you're using an LLM-driven approach just for that content, fine-tuning it, and also having a persona that resonates with your brand, that's absolutely fine. You do not need to kind of pivot towards having a complete conversational AI platform, right? Now, whereas when you go one step further and you would like to have product recommendations, cross-sell, upsell services, and products, and in this way, like where you have the bot that guides the user in a specific conversational journey, right? And based on their interest, okay, do you want this or do you want that? A couple of set questions so that it can go ahead and recommend the right product. And in this scenario, let's say there could be advanced scenarios where you would want the bot to go to the CRM and see the let's say the customers who are talking to you, their previous purchase that they have done. So based on that, go and do recommendation on, hey, these could be other services that we think might fit you well, right? So these are some advanced scenarios. And for this, we feel conversation AI platform plus LLM would be a great combination to achieve these set of use cases. Now, moving ahead to integration-based scenarios, where you're connecting your CRM databases, ticketing tools like ServiceNow, and where for basic operations, right, for fetching your customer details, ticketing, or even triggering custom scripts and custom functions, right, that you want to trigger from your virtual agent. And that's where conversational AI platforms gives you more freedom, because with the output, you can play around what you want to do next with that. And that's where we see this fitting into the integration-based scenarios. Now, when it comes...
Aditya, I'll just interrupt. I'm sorry. But, Paul, when I was at MIT, Alden and I had a conversation specifically about this scenario. And I believe LLM-based systems are working on this, because this is, I would say, going to be a fair hurdle to a larger scale adoption of LLM models, at least in the contact center and the customer experience space. The ability of a brand to seamlessly pull data, secure data, and be able to, display that, ensuring compliance with HIPAA and a bunch of other regulations around, PII. How do you do that? And, do LLM-based systems give you the ability to ensure compliance? And I think with actions coming in, it'll be interesting to see how this problem is solved. But I think this is an immediate next frontier to be solved by the LLM systems.
That's great.
Because the bulk of the work that I see is just, pulling data in.
Yeah.
Sending data.
Keep driving. We got about 15 minutes left. I want to touch on the cost stuff, and you guys have a great picture at the end that shows the interplay. I want to get to that as well. But
right. So all right. So Aditya, let's run through this one.
Now, the next is, again, troubleshooting and product recommendations. LLM-driven approach would be a great scenario, usage for that. And similarly, like process, right? Updating an account, deactivating a car, complex troubleshooting steps. Now, Paul, this is where I was talking about the whole augmentation piece, because this is where you require a human assistance in front, because from our experience of working with banks as well, any kind of typical updates to bank or travel notifications with specific scenarios might require, even though your virtual agent is collecting all the information possible, you would need a live agent to validate some of those information, verify, and then go ahead. So some domains are still hesitant to completely automate some of these steps. So this falls under the whole augmentation side of things, right? Now, if you have a scenario where you have use cases of mix of all the above or mix of one or two, then the hybrid approach is the best for you, right? So this is what we're trying to say in this deck. Now, moving on to the cost. Again,
one quick question for you. Lucinda asked, how do you define NLU versus large language model? Oh, Lucinda, are we answering this? Is this an old question?
Yeah, let me ask the question. Hi, let me ask the question. So I see in that previous one that you had, you describe, and maybe you said it in your comments, but I didn't catch it. So you have keyword search, etc. Matching. That's kind of an old time, more brittle way of doing it. You have NLU, and I was just wondering, what is your NLU? What's in NLU versus LLM? I mean, LLM, I think we all know, right? But what is it specifically in NLU? Does that include keyword matching, or what are the kind of technologies under that? And then why it seems like NLU is incorporated in many of the conventional solutions, and so that there's clearly things that it does well that people feel like they can rely on. So what is the difference then between LLM and NLU?
Right. So NLU is essentially it's a subset of natural language processing, which in simple words is natural language understanding. And to answer your question, yes, it has keyword matching. That's the most simplest form of it. It has a concept of intents and entities. So instead of LLM is generative AI model, right? It's trained on large corpus of data, and you have it's a huge model, right? And it is predominantly trained on generic data sets. And you take that, and then you, let's say for your domain on banking or your domain on particular things, you fine tune it and you retrain it on top of that to make that LLM for your industry, right? Now, NLU is a little different. So NLU, and in terms of technology, it's the same, right? NLM, you need to, it works as an NLU because it's natural language understanding at the end of the day. So whereas NLU, how it works is, it is a base model that has been created by most of these platforms. Like you have Dialogflow that gives you the NLU model, and it is not it is trained on big data, but not as much as large corpus data like large language models. And LLM has a lot of manual work where you as a designer or a company would have to add intents of your intention for these use cases, entities, and create a specific conversational AI model for your use case, right? So it takes a lot of time for you to do that. And once you create the model, the virtual agent will be able to understand, the user intents and process it. So that's pretty much like, at least from a technical perspective.
Just to add on, Lucinda, so it'll be, think of it like a restrictive subset where, you're only defining your named entity model to cover the things that you want to cover. Right? So smaller restrictive subset of the things that you want your end customer to be able to do on your chatbot, so as to speak.
Okay, so it's kind of a more primitive predecessor of LLMs, right? It's kind of, TF-IDF or whatever, right?
In a nutshell.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. But yes, but again, LLMs can end up becoming completely, you have the state of bias creeping in, because it is, the same, right? Large corpus of data, whereas NLU is completely devoid of bias. The only reason being because you have complete control over it. You train everything from scratch from the data that goes into it, right? So that is one of the typical difference why process related things where you don't want bias to creep in at all. We use a traditional NLU driven models. And does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, Aditya, let's, we just have 5 more
So I'll
minutes.
just
Sharon got a quick question. Go ahead, Sharon. Thanks for raising your hand, Sharon. Oh, Sharon,
Thanks so much. This is fantastic. Do you have customers that are asking for ways to integrate you mentioned omnichannel, because the customer on a chatbot expects you to know their experience on social media, when you contacted them versus on an email, when you called them to say their flight was canceled. Do you have clients that are integrating all of those together?
Right. That is correct. So we have a lot of customers who are doing that, predominantly in the banking, airline, and FMCG and CPG customers, brands. So they have customer journey tools, CRMs, and some of them have all of this data coming in from multiple sources. And we work to integrate with them, get that data in, and the virtual agent send that data to the chatbot to kind of understand that. But yes, most of these brands do use this. And in some scenarios, like I mentioned earlier, we use historic data from the CRM to kind of recommend to them at the end of a conversation, hey, it seemed that you might be eligible for this product or that, product X or product Y based on their previous purchases. So yes, integrating them is something that most of the brands are doing.
Great, thanks.
Right. So, Paul, shall we continue?
please. Yeah, thank you.
Right. So I'll just keep this, anyways, the content I believe will be shared across to everyone. So I'll just keep it extremely minimal on this slide. So this is to building a chatbot, right? Typically, especially with So you have two approaches. You either do it on your own using platforms, or you do with the help of, services organizations that help you build out these virtual agents end to end. Now, again, when it comes to cost, there's two components. You have your build out cost. It's just the cost from end to start to finish on building a chatbot. Plus your running cost, because everything is cloud, right? And what are your running costs? And so the pricing models out there is so messy, right? Because there are too many pricing models. Every platform is different. And I understand tokens are the new currency of the modern world, right? Pricing an LLM has become also extremely difficult. Now, this is an indicative pricing of just the natural language models. This does not include integrations. This does not include your hosting cost, or even platforms like LivePerson, Core AI, Cognigy, and so on. They have platform license and they have monthly usage cost is applicable. So this does not include any of that. This is just a modest assumption of you just utilizing the NLU services, and how much might that kind of like come up to, right? So this is just a simple assumption. Let's say you have about 5,000 customers. Your customer visits that you're having with about average of 2 conversations, with 10, average of 10 interactions each, right? So which means that they end up having 2 end-to-end dialogues, each of it having about to and fro of 10 interactions each, right? This is just a very modest assumption. And that gives you a ballpark figure of about 100K queries per month. And queries is a word you would have to kind of get used to it when you really want to start pricing things and know what's the price of your models. And then you have your 10K conversations per month, right? In simplified manner. Again, this is only for chat. Voice pricing is completely different. Now let's take the two most prominent platforms out there, your Google end of the spectrum and your Microsoft end of the spectrum, right? So your Vertex AI conversational chat, this is Google's version of, I think this is Gemini, to put it in simple words. This is using their platform, which is Vertex AI conversational chat, and they have an indicator pricing of about $12 per 1,000 queries, and they have simplified the pricing as a query. So there's no token concept of 0.01, like how chat OpenAI gives you with GPT-4 Turbo. And if you're using Dialogflow of Google for just building chatbots without LLM, then the pricing is about $7 per 1,000 queries. So if you use in a hybrid model, even with this, you will be reaching somewhere between, in the range of $1,500 or so, with assumption that you get about 100 queries per month in your coming to your
okay.
chatbot.
And Aditya, I'd just like to add on, this is very low usage, just to
Extremely
put
low
things in
usage, yeah.
perspective for folks who are not familiar. When we speak with even small organizations or SMEs or mid-sized brands doing things, the number of conversations typically run into 1 million a year. It could run into 10 million. So this is relatively a smaller number. It was just an indicative number.
Dheeraj, if you could finish up in maybe 2 minutes, I do want to leave
Yeah.
a few minutes for my open mic. We'll go 5 minutes over today, but go ahead.
Yeah, Aditya, if you can just quickly run through.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I think I suggest that we skip this. So just for the sake of convenience, we've kind of put together a package based on our experiences building this for smaller brands in APAC and North America, as well as with larger companies which really need very custom and ongoing multi-year engagements. We've put together a bunch of packages just to make it easy to give an indicative figure around what would a typical conversational AI on a typical platform entail. So there are a couple of slides for that. Aditya,
The headline there is you can get started with $1,000 on a really basic virtual agent, chatbot, large language model, then all the way up to something very sophisticated that's no hallucinations and deeply tied into your integration. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Yes.
Great. You want to show your last slide with the bubbles, and then I know there's a couple questions hanging out there. I'm sorry, whoever just took their hand down.
Yeah, sure. And I think the final thing over here is your advanced enterprise scenarios, and we've also added a bunch different variations for different models, build out costs over here. Yes. Now, just to sum up our complete conversation, so what's the best way, right? A balanced approach. And at least from a design perspective or a customer experience engineering perspective, always follow the 80-20 rule, right? Use LLM only where you feel that you can, it's the low-hanging fruit, right? Where you can solve all of those low-hanging fruit problems, L0, L1 issues, rapid build-outs, where you want to handle all those large corpus of internal data, handles FAQs and knowledge bases, use your LLM. And for fallbacks, no more, sorry, I did not get you, right? So replace those things, those very bad experience fallbacks. Sorry, I did not catch that. Can you come again? So replace all of that with LLM with more graceful endings to your conversations. And you can also use it to make it a little more domain specific, be it if you're a payer, provider, banking, or any domain specific scenarios that you need. Use NLU-driven approach when you want to create these specific flows, integrations, having a complete omni-channel experience, and also having the whole contact center operations going on as well, where you want to hand off to a live agent. So this is, I think this is the best approach, at least in the foreseeing future, having a good balanced approach of LLM plus NLU-driven model. So this is what we wanted to conclude with this.
Aditya, thank you so much. It's a fantastic presentation. I'm just really sensitive to time. Go ahead. I think DJ, you had a call or hand up. DJ, you're on mute.
Yeah, if you go to that flow slide without LLM, DigiFlow without LLM is what's the concept behind that, and what would be a reason that someone would go for that?
Okay, you mean this one?
No, you were just out there. You had highlighted.
Okay, got it. You mean this one,
That's
right?
One of the options, right? Further ahead. Sorry about that.
You're talking about this slide, right?
No, the DigiFlow one without LLM. So you had the three options there, right?
DigiFlow without the LLMs.
Yeah, go further. It's towards your end.
Maybe with the pricing?
Yeah, this one here. Yeah. No, go. So
Aditya, can you go to the is this what you're referring to, DJ?
No, the previous one. Sorry, he's going too fast.
Aditya, can you just go slowly? Yeah, just
this
take
one. That's
yeah.
it. Right. So you had the platform DigiFlow without LLM. Like
Right.
Where do you see the value, or what's the use case context here that someone would utilize this particular scenario for?
So this would be anywhere with respect to let's say banks. For example, I'm just giving you a domain specific example. Could be FSI or a special banks where you want to do authentication, guide the users. This is the top use case, right? And then account related information where you want to go change your let's say add a beneficiary, change your last name, your address. So those kind of attributes where you're making an active change and then you're adding that change directly to CRM. These could be a top process level scenarios that you would use Dialogflow without an LLM, right? Now,
I think Aditya, sorry guys. So DJ, this is Dialogflow is I'm assuming you meant Dialogflow, right? Not DigiFlow.
Sorry, yes, Dialogflow.
Dialogflow is one of the conversational AI platforms. So all the other use cases that we spoke about where you have very specific integrations, data needs to be pulled in, there's an API, there's authentication. Essentially, there's a backend, CRM or a backend system integration that's needed. Currently, in our understanding, we really don't have a viable alternative to the traditional conversational AI systems for building workflows like that.
Really great. Guys, I really appreciate it. Last quick question on my end, Dheeraj. So in my simplistic brain, is this the following statement correct? That in traditional deterministic systems, input in 100% explainability, output, no variability. That's a traditional large language model. The chatbots are probabilistic. We do have variations there and we can't explain it. Is that true in the...
Not 100%, Paul. We do see challenges, and I think someone in the group chat also mentioned that NLU is not without its own challenges, right? So we do see that, but some of them could be a result of your intent model was not well defined. So that's more of an implementation problem.
Fantastic.
right?
So,
And
I just been so sensitive to time. Thank you, guys. Really, really good. Appreciate it. And Dheeraj, thank you so much for getting up so early in India. I know it's ridiculously early over there. Just the last 2 or 3 minutes here. Is there any open mic? Does anyone